86 fighters on the selection screen. 43 must stay, 43 must go. Who would bite the bullet? Okay, so first of all, this premise sucks. This was the Smash trend that was floating around the web last year, a fun, hypothetical exercise debating how the Smash roster should be split if half of them had to get the axe. I emphasize hypothetical because some started to unironically like this idea, thinking Sakurai should cut the base roster in half in the next Smash game, so that the half that were left could be given the time of day for maybe a moveset rework, some major balance changes, or even a complete overhaul to their character. And I get it. Just look at this guy. But the problem with this is that these people started assuming Sakurai would cut the roster in the same way they would, not considering that Sakurai is Sakurai and would do whatever he wanted, leaving people to turn on this idea as soon as it's implemented. After all, there is a reason why game developers don't listen to us fans, and it's because we're idiots. There's a new Nintendo Direct coming soon, so of course people are blabbering on about this idea still, not realizing that this would be the worst way to market a game ever. I mean, just imagine Sakurai/Nintendo trying to announce this like, hey, I know it's been 7 years, but here's the new Smash game. It's got half the characters in it as before. Hello? But apparently I'm the biggest idiot of all, because here I am putting myself in Sakurai's shoes asking, what would the Smash roster really look like if it was cut in half? Combining what I think Sakurai/Nintendo's logic would be, mixed with a bit of my own, because yeah, some of these characters have overstayed their welcome. Why is he still here? So here's what we need to consider. How popular a Smash fighter is both in and outside of Smash, and ignoring hypothetical factors such as license agreements and character redundancy, who would Sakurai/Nintendo really push for? Starting off with the original 12 Smash 64 fighters, for example, who would be first on the chopping block? Well, that would depend on another massive external factor, that being character legacy. Would Sakurai prioritize newer fighters in this scenario, or lean more towards those who have been in since the start, like with other Smash titles? Because although Jigglypuff sticks out most like a sore thumb, she's created an entirely different identity for herself through Smash, just from being in the series for over 25 years. If the first Smash game was released today, for example, you would have more chance of Jigglypuff being included than you would getting her fanbase to finally take a shower. Because out of over 1,000 Pokemon, why the hell would you choose this? Even in our timeline, she was added in 64 for convenience reasons and almost got cut in Brawl anyway. Ness and Captain Falcon 2 coming from game franchises so dead and buried that some people probably think this was Sans and Papyrus before they died. No! Heck, most of you watching were probably born after these two series had their last game, and I don't want to talk about this anymore. And Fox McCloud 2 is such an iconic Smash character, especially in Melee, that people forget his last game was almost 10 years ago. The other 8 would be fine, sure, but you see my point. What angle do I tackle this from? It's not like anyone would remove someone like Yoshi, for example. Let's just move on to the Melee roster. Fortunately, this game is a different story that's actually got some dead weight, so we can start to make some progress. Pichu and Young Link being the first ones I'd push off a building and removed from Smash. Having been adapted from Pikachu and Link respectively, they were absent in Brawl and Smash 4, and it's not hard to see why. Unlike other clone characters, they hadn't been given enough tools to properly differentiate themselves from their counterparts. And even in Ultimate, it's hard to favour them over other Pokemon and Zelda fighters. Roy and Dr. Mario would be my third and fourth cuts respectively, though being more popular characters, both were absent in Brawl and come from inflated franchises that are easy targets for this type of video. Marth has sort of become like the poster boy for Fire Emblem now, and it makes sense to keep him over Roy. Both could potentially make for great skins though, adding a flame effect to Marth's sword and masking Mario's fireballs with Doc's pills. I mean, if they can give the Koopalings a wand instead of a hammer, I don't see why they couldn't do this as well. I don't know how people would react to Roy having a tipper instead of this. So if you at home think this is a good idea, like the video and leave a comment below. And if you don't, like the video and leave a comment below. And then there's the Ice Climbers. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that I think Sakurai would try to preserve as many different IPs represented in Smash as they possibly could to really emphasize the fact that Smash is an all-star crossover fighting game. When removing characters from each Smash game, Sakurai has never disbanded a complete series, with the exception of Ice Climbers in Smash 4. I get that this was because of hardware limitations of the 3DS, but unfortunately that's not all Ice Climbers has going against them. Originating from a series with just one game, Ice Climber on the NES, these two haven't been in a non-Smash related video game in over 40 years, and even then, said game only sold 1.5 million units, half the sales of games such as Punch-Out and Dragon Quest IV. In the end, these two really were just the retro reps we never needed, because in the same game we got 21 safe, 5 removed. Moving on to Brawl, we can remove another 5 fighters. Ike, much like Roy, I would remove just because there's other Fire Emblem characters I'd rather keep instead of him. I know he's our only heavy-ish sortie, but look, we can only keep 43 characters. We're not going to have room for every archetype combination, plus Link's only 3 units lighter than him anyway. Lucario, in the same sense, suffers from being part of a franchise that's way too bloated, though more justified, isn't as popular to play as other Pokemon reps here, and generally isn't too unique, apart from having an aura mechanic which people don't even like. Rob, on the other hand, is an interesting one because he's not even representing a series. He was a toy that was released during the video game crash of 1983 and has a moveset that is completely made up, much like that of Captain Falcon. He's an important part of video game history, sure, but at this point we have a bunch of characters like that, and I think Game & Watch is a much better choice in representing retro Nintendo. And finally, Wolf and Lucas, 2 more clonish characters who are unfortunately both from dead franchises. Wolf is one of our few villains, making me question this a bit. His moveset is more distinct from that of Fox and Falco's, and after Smash 4, it was nice to finally get him back, and he became a fighter who people tended to like playing as and against. But I just can't justify keeping 3 Star Fox reps. I'm not sure I can even justify keeping more than 1. Lucas, on the other hand, is one that really breaks my heart. He was my main in Brawl and is one of my favourite fighters in Smash as a whole. But I have to stay as objective as I can, and Lucas being from a game that never released outside of Japan makes him fall at the first hurdle. Though I don't see any reason why he can be kept as a skin for Ness, with the two sharing a hybrid of their movesets. Ness's specials and aerials mixed with Luke's tilts and smash attacks, for example. There's a few other characters I think this would work with too, but we'll get to that later. 32 safe, 10 removed. Which leads us onto Smash 4, and I won't lie, some of these new additions are kinda mid. So strap yourselves in, cause using the same logic, we're entering the quickfire round. Lucina and Dark Pit were added as our first Echo Fighters before the term was even coined, and could easily be turned into skins. We've got enough edgy and flat characters, thank you very much. Duck Hunt was a weird choice even when he got announced, hasn't proved to be a very popular smasher, and much like Robin Ices, is a retro character better represented by Game & Watch. Rosalina and Bowser Jr. are non-major Mario characters who aren't too common in Smash. They're both unique, but both not as iconic as the other Mario characters we already have. Palutena doesn't bring anything unique to the table and is part of a franchise that hasn't had any new games in 13 years. I just can't justify more than 1 rep for this series, much like others. Little Mac, in the same vein, hasn't had a new game in 16 years, has less series sales than most other franchises here, and is a bit of a mess when it comes to his Smash design anyway. Corrin and the Miis are weird. They've been attached to some of the best-selling Nintendo games of all time, but also they're Miis. These 3 are usually the first characters that people cut, and I find that kinda strange. Like, I get it, but what better characters to represent the Wii and Wii U era? And even with the Switch, Miis are still being used. Say what you will about them, they're actually important. With that being said, we definitely don't need 3 of them. Rename Mii Brawler to just Mii, get rid of the other 2, and we're golden. 43 safe, 20 removed. We've already hit our threshold. Damn, 23 characters still to go, and we're already here at our final stop, Smash Ultimate. As in the Smash game that went out of its way to introduce a bunch of fan-requested fighters. Cool. Fortunately, I can already see one character I've been dying to get rid of for a while now, and oh hi Min Min! Min Min is one of those fighters who could just turn into an assist trophy and not lose any value. She has the fewest amount of moves of any Smash fighter, and is largely considered one of, if not the most, boring characters in the game. Where you've got characters who lie in the golden zone of being popular in and outside of Smash, you've also got those who just not many people like in either, and might as well have a massive target pinned to their back with a sign saying "kick me from your game." These are just easy examples though, no one would actually choose to keep Min Min and remove Cloud for instance. Which is what I would say if the Smash community didn't have the worst takes of all time. This isn't even personal bias either, with the fighter being from one game that only sold 2.72 million copies, less than 1-2 Switch, and in said game isn't even one of the poster characters. Okay, so that's 4 different IPs already destroyed, despite my earlier protesting. Piranha Plant and Incineroar would be my next choices, for the same reason as the other Mario and Pokemon reps. Plant is just a common Mario enemy, I don't think we're losing too much there, but Incin is a bit of a shame, considering his unique grappling style was very much needed, and much like the other heavies, is still seen as a very fun character to use. As for Ultimate's Echoes, Chrom, Ken, Richter, Daisy and Dark Samus all make for easy cuts. I don't know how well Chrom or Ken would work as skins, but the others would at least be suitable, with a few special effect changes such as Daisy's side B, Dark Samus's animations, etc. This would also leave every third-party series with only 1 rep each, with the exception of Final Fantasy. Predicting what Sakurai would do with third-party reps is by and far the hardest part of this challenge. I mean, who's to say we'll even get any Final Fantasy reps back at all? At the end of the day, it's all going to depend on that pesky external factor, licensing agreements. Obviously, I also can't say whether we'll get any more Sonic or Mega Man characters, for example, because again, this is hypothetical, and as mentioned before, I don't want to make the assumption that we would, so I'm kind of liking the idea that we keep to just 1 third-party rep per series, meaning bye-bye Sephiroth. As for the rest, I have a feeling I'll be coming back for some of them very soon, but for now that leaves us with 57 safe and 29 removed. Realistically, if Sakurai was going to cut characters, I personally think it would end here, assuming he would be able to get the rest of them, of course. Then again, if this really was real, Sakurai wouldn't be cutting the Echoes and would all be miserable. So the show must go on. We've only got 14 to go and my voice is killing me, but here we go. On to the second draft, and it's here where I unfortunately need to start letting go of the less relevant fighters, even if they're popular Smash characters. But before we get to that, hybrid combinations. Okay, so hear me out, hear me out. I mentioned this during Lucas's segment, still crying from that by the way, but there's a way we can kinda cheat a little by thinking outside the box and combining multiple characters in the same fighter slot by taking bits and pieces from each of them to create a hybrid of the 2 movesets. And I think this would work really well with Villager and Isabelle. Really, Animal Crossing deserves more than 1 rep, that's no secret, but we gotta get down to just 43 characters, and I really want to keep as many characters with original movesets as I can. The silver lining is, by combining Villager and Isabelle's movesets, we have an opportunity to actually add in a lot of the different Animal Crossing villagers as skins, due to almost all of them having the same shape and size, similar to what they did with Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings. And if you really wanted to stretch this idea, you could even do this with the Star Fox characters. Say, for example, by combining Fox and Falco's moveset together, getting rid of Fox's tail moves so that you could apply this moveset to almost any of the Star Fox characters, and there we go, I solved Star Fox. Another way we can cheat a little is by applying this logic to characters who used to be able to transform into another, that being Zelda into Sheik and Samus into Zero Suit Samus. These mechanics were removed in Smash 4 due to the 3DS's limitations, with Sakurai explaining that it was impossible to have both characters exist together as one on the 3DS, but that it ultimately led to a good decision being made. Transforming characters had the drawback of ambiguous tactics and such, and I believe that they have become more fresh now. And it's hard to argue with that, considering Zelda's best move used to be becoming Sheik. But what's weird is that this mechanic was brought back with Pyra and Mithra, so why can't we revert Sheik and Zero Suit Samus to how they were? This would probably mean that we couldn't use Dark Samus as a skin anymore, but just like that, we're down 4 more characters without really removing them. And yet you could argue this is kinda counterproductive to the whole point of cutting the Smash roster down in half in the first place, so if you think this is a good idea, like the video and leave a comment. We can also get rid of another 4 characters by setting up 4 simultaneous head-to-heads: Mewtwo vs Greninja, Shulk vs Pyra and Mithra, Robin vs Byleth, and Diddy Kong vs King K. Rool. The reason I've paired these characters up with each other specifically is that you could make an argument for either of them staying over the other. Mewtwo is an iconic Pokemon and fan favourite fighter, while Greninja is one of our few modern Pokemon reps and also won the Pokemon of the Year poll in 2020. Shulk is the main character and, like Marth, new poster child of Xenoblade, while Pyra and Mithra are very common Smash picks from a game that also sold much better. Robin is one of our few mage reps with a unique weapon durability mechanic from arguably the most important Fire Emblem game, while Byleth is a modern, more commonly played fighter who actually represents the whole weapons triangle. I think. I don't play Fire Emblem. Diddy Kong is a Brawl veteran who's most commonly paired up with Donkey Kong and even takes the lead in a couple of Donkey Kong games, while King K. Rool is yet another fan favourite, providing much needed representation for villains and super heavies. Really, it's a 50-50 situation for each of these, but for the sake of the video, Greninja over Mewtwo just because of the amount of Gen 1 reps we already have, plus that whole poll thing I mentioned earlier, guess he wasn't as flavour of the month as we thought. Shulk over Pyra and Mithra, largely because he's the poster boy, his Monado is a more unique and iconic feature, while Pyra and Mithra aren't even the main protagonists in their own game. Byleth over Robin because Lucina and possibly Chrom, even as costumes, would already represent Awakening, and Three Houses has the best sales of any Fire Emblem game. And Diddy over K. Rool, mainly because K. Rool hasn't actually appeared in a DK game for almost 20 years, while Diddy not only still appears but also even stars in multiple DK games. 8 down, 6 to go. And before I get any comments complaining about how many Pokemon or Fire Emblem characters I've removed, these 2 game series are notorious for being generously represented. And that's me saying that as a Pokemon fan. But more than that, if there's one thing you should know about Smash, it's that we'll always get at least 1 new Pokemon rep and 1 new Fire Emblem rep in each installment. Unlike my previous logic in regards to not wanting to assume there will be new characters added to a series, I'm 100% okay with making Pokemon and Fire Emblem an exception to that rule. But even with just 6 remaining now, we may still need to snap a few more IPs. And to do that, we really need to start comparing some more sales data. It's getting serious now. Using Punch-Out sales figures as a threshold, for instance, and rounding that number up to a clean 5 million, there's already a few IPs that struggle to keep up. I've already spoken about Ice Climbers and ARMS, but surprisingly, Kid Icarus is down there too with only 3.169 million sales. This is the series that has the same amount of reps as Kirby. And then we get to this. Over 40 million sales. That's more than Metroid, Fire Emblem and Kingdom Hearts, and no one uses this character. Heck, I removed Duck Hunt and that game has over double the sales of Brawl. Okay. Pit, I'll leave to the side for now. I really didn't go into this expecting to cut all 3 Kid Icarus reps, but we fit, entirely different audience sure, and technically part of the Wii series if anything, which is already represented by the Miis, but those sales. Even Ring Fit Adventure has 15.38 million sales. That's more than some Pokemon games. Not to mention the Wii series has more sales than the entire Zelda franchise. Pop her into the void too, I'm done with this. Let's take a look at some more third-party sales, and raising the threshold to 10 million now, that's less than the Dr. Mario series. Banjo-Kazooie reaches just past the 6 million mark, Bayonetta barely falls short by just 3 million, and Fatal Fury / King of Fighters, nobody knows. What we do know, however, is that both Street Fighter and Tekken have over 50 million sales each, and that Fatal Fury / King of Fighters likely isn't scratching the surface of those figures. A lot of us didn't even know who this guy was when he was first announced, so it's time to finally rip off a few more band-aids. I'm sure no one will be mad about these guys. 46 safe, 40 removed. As for some other Smash fighters people might question me about in the comments, Kirby hasn't lost any reps yet, but the series was pretty underrepresented anyway. The franchise has over 50 million sales, which is definitely nothing to sneeze at, and I think the three fighters we have here now are very iconic to Smash and Nintendo in general. It's no secret that Olimar isn't a popular character in Smash. I think I can find more people who enjoy watching paint dry than I can people who like playing as him, but people also have a soft spot for Pikmin, and with over 11 million sales, it still deserves one rep. Pokemon Trainer might seem like a weird one to keep around to some of you. They were cut in Smash 4, and being a 3-in-1 character, it might seem counterintuitive to spend more time adding them all in rather than an easier option. But the original 3 starters are still some of the most iconic Pokemon in the series. Most people can still name Charizard over most fighters here. But if you still think that's cheating, just pretend Mewtwo is there instead. I don't know. My voice hurts and I've been recording for over 1 hour. Cut me a break. So here we go, Draft 3, the final version. This is everyone we've decided to keep so far, but now we're on to the really hard part. Wii Fit's been sitting there like she's part of the team, Disney being Disney, I'm not sure if I should make any assumptions about Sora or not, and Pit's still out there floating in the abyss. Characters like Ridley, Toon Link, and even some more of the third parties had also started to catch my eye. And it was no lie that I was starting to lose my goddamn mind. But it was then that I took a moment and reminded myself of the most important thing. WWSD. What would Sakurai do? I could sit here all day analysing character popularity and game sales, but at the end of the day, the only two factors really controlling Smash are Nintendo and the little voices in Sakurai's head. So boom and boom, Wii Fit isn't a popular character. People had mixed reactions during her initial reveal, and since then, she's been given very little attention. Her game sold well, sure, but it appealed to a different audience, and being part of the Wii series, it was never gonna do badly anyway. Wii Sports is still the third best selling game of all time, largely due to it being included with the Wii. Wii Fit U, Wii Fit's most recent game, didn't even hit 1 million sales, and she hasn't had a new game for 12 years now. So I think the Mii is all we need to represent the Wii. Toon Link, on the other hand, is one of our 3 remaining Smash characters whose moveset is based on another character's. Much like Wolf, he only just scraped into Brawl, and although it would have been nice to have him represent the more, well, toony Legend of Zelda games, it's no secret that he's not the most popular Smasher in the world and doesn't have anything to set him apart from the other fighters. Yes, this only leaves Zelda with 3 reps, or 4 if you count Sheik, which is less than it deserves, I admit, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And so we're left with only one. This was by and far the hardest decision yet. But lining up all the third-party reps we've kept up to this point, there was unfortunately one who stuck out to me. Simon from Castlevania. Sure, he was a welcome addition to Ultimate that was met with nothing but praise, but even taking into account the split between him and Richter, the two weren't very well received in game. And out of all the third party reps still left, they also have the lowest sales, falling to that of Wario, Luigi's Mansion, and even Duck Hunt. Metroid, also with more sales, better represents the Metroidvania genre, and have fighters who are more popular in Smash. And fun fact, originally Ridley was the one who I chose to cut here. But we just can't deny he's been a character who people have been screaming for since the start of Smash, and despite his uninspired moveset in Ultimate, this sort of game premise would be the perfect opportunity to revamp his character, and I truly think he just deserves to be here amongst the other iconic Nintendo villains. Because after all, unlike Simon, Ridley's been with us since the very beginning. 43 safe, 43 removed. As for the other characters I briefly mentioned, trying to get Sora back would be well worth the trouble considering he was the most requested fighter. All the other third parties are too popular to get rid of, either inside or outside of Smash, usually both. And assuming Sakurai would be the one to lead this next Smash project, there's no way Pit is going anywhere. Thanks for watching. Hi, me again, my voice is dead. If you enjoyed this video, I've got even more Smash content waiting for you on my channel, including my predictions on what the next Smash game will be. If you're planning on submitting clips for my next community montage, the deadline is at the end of February, more info in the description. And while you're there, be sure to hit that big old subscribe button to stay up to date with all my content. Also, let me know down below which 43 characters would you keep and which would you Thanos snap into oblivion. Anyway, I'm gonna make my getaway before Fire Emblem Fan 87 turns up in my comments complaining about me removing a character who only 5 people play. Bye!